Hello everybody, welcome to another video, and in today's video we're going to do a ranking of every single Premier League club's performance across all competitions. So if you are really good, you'll be in the A category. If you are awful, you'll be in the F category, and so on and so forth. But before I begin, if you are new here, please hit the subscribe and the like as well. It'd be greatly appreciated. We're going to start from the bottom to the top, and there's not really much else we can say. Southampton, they spent quite a lot of money. And yeah, it's an F. I mean, ultimately, being relegated is the worst thing that can happen to you if you're coming into the Premier League. I know they were recently promoted. I know that the parachute payments aren't great. But for me, I really don't think, anyone other than Ipswich, maybe they put more of a fight, even though they actually did finish below Leicester, than more of the other teams. They picked up more points from the teams above them. And I do feel like it would be unfair to put Ipswich as well in F, but relegation is ultimately the worst thing you can do. So I have no other choice but to put these teams into this F category. So maybe we'll move it about like this. One's closer to the F means that they're sort of above, and the ones to the end is like more down in the F category. Next, we've got Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, and this is really difficult for me. 17th place, but they won the Europa League. I've got it down. They got to the FA Cup 4th round and the Carabao Cup semi-final as well. So it wasn't that bad in terms of the competitions. They got pretty far in the Carabao. They won the Europa League. I know the 4th round, it was against Aston Villa, to be honest, so some context there, a really tough away game. So I think it would be fair, in terms of the context of Spurs, to put them in the B category. 17th place is not good enough. Absolutely not good enough. And they should be ashamed to even be anywhere near this part of the table. But they needed silverware by whatever means possible. There was actually questions on Spurs Twitter whether they would take 17th and a Europa League win. Most of them at the beginning of the season would have taken that. So when we look at it like that, 17th and a Europa League and a Carabao Cup semi-final is a pretty good finish. But next season, they cannot be lingering around at this stage, in sort of the Premier League table. Next off, in 16th place, we have got Wolves, and I think Wolves are in the B category. I think they started off really slow. Vitor Pereira came in, did a fantastic job. Cunha, yes, he pulled most of their weight, but Aït-Nouri was excellent. There were some really strong performances in that Wolves side. Looking at Gomez, looking at Andre, those really sturdy midfielders were putting in the weight for Wolves and climbing them up that table. And I feel like if Vitor Pereira started the season, they could have been in and around the Fulhams, the Bournemouth, the Brentfords, and made a real push up that Premier League table and probably gone for Europe, because I saw something that said Wolves, if they had started with Vitor Pereira, are the top 7 most informed teams in the division, which is a really good showing. Next up, we've got Manchester United, 15th place. I forgot to say Wolves got to the FA Cup 5th round, Carabao Cup 3rd round, so maybe a bit better in those cup competitions. But in all, a B. For United, 5th round of the FA Cup, 15th in the Premier League, Europa League semi-finalists, Carabao Cup quarter-finals. I'm sorry. It's got to be an F. It's got to be an F for Manchester United. That was a horrific season. Amorim, when he came in, he was only 4 points off the top 4. Now they're, 21 points off of it as the season finishes. 21 points off of it. A toothless performance in the Europa League final. Losing to Spurs 4 times in one season as well. These guys were absolutely atrocious. And I'm sorry, the F category, yes, those relegated teams are there, but United were much worse in the context of what we know them and how good they need to be for the club of that stature. That is just not good enough. 15th place in the Premier League. Next, we've got West Ham, 14th, FA Cup 3rd round, Carabao Cup 3rd round. It's just really... I don't know what to... I think it's an F. I really do. In terms of the amount of money they spent in the summer, the hope you had for them with Lopetegui, the sort of, poor subpar performance in the cup competitions. You cannot, as West Ham, get to only the 3rd round of the FA Cup and the 3rd round of the Carabao Cup. You need to be taking those competitions seriously. We saw what a Conference League win can do. And I feel like if more effort, more you sort of... more of an onus on those competitions was had, they could have done a Crystal Palace and won a trophy. But 14th place, where West Ham were in the 2 previous seasons, is simply not good enough. Now we're on to Everton, and they had a really good, strong finish. And I think for me, that's what makes them into this B category. I know in the cup competitions, only 3rd round and the 4th round respectively. But in the context of where Everton were under Sean Dyche, the performance of Moyes to lift them all the way into 13th place, again, I think they were one of the teams, the top 10, 11, 12 in terms of form alone in since Moyes has come in. And that's really, really strong. It puts them in a great position going into the new stadium. Yes, maybe they could have been a C, but again, you've got to look at the context of Everton within their season, where they were with Sean Dyche, the football they were playing. Moyes has changed their lives in terms of the different style. I know they're not very dissimilar in terms of style, but I think it is really, really important to think about Everton being in that 13th place position. It is really, really good. And if we move on now to Crystal Palace, who find themselves in 12th place, they've won the FA Cup and they also got to a nice Carabao Cup quarter-final. That is a really, really good effort. And their highest ever points finish in the Premier League. For me, it has to be an A. Probably one of the only clubs in here, with the Liverpool, of course, where you can actually say that an A is utterly deserved. It really, really is. Yes, they were probably in a better sort of, controlled season. I think they could have again been where Forest were and Brighton, and I expect them next season, if they can keep Eze, keep a lot of their big players like Gahey, that they can go on and push on and really push for Europe. They've already got Europe with the sort of FA Cup win, but they can push for it in the league. It was a really nice season. In terms of Fulham, FA Cup quarterfinals, Carabao Cup third round, and an 11th place finish. For me, again, their highest ever points total finish. In the FA Cup, getting knocked out, it wasn't great for them in terms of, Eze, Crystal Palace, they knocked them out. But it was eventually the winners who knocked them out, so you can't really attack them for that. But a strong season, kind of fell off towards the end, but I think, sort of B for them is really, really good. I've now started to think I'm a bit too sort of lenient with the Wolves, the Evertons and Tottenhams, but I'll look at this more towards the end. Brentford, 10th place, Carabao Cup quarterfinals, FA Cup third round. I feel like next season they got to really push in the cup competitions and see what they can do, if they can do a Crystal Palace. But in the context of their season, they made a real push towards the end towards Europe, and Mbeumo and Wissa with their form. And I think it is again a B. So what I'm going to actually have to do here is move a couple of teams down. I think Wolves probably in there, with, if you think about Gary O'Neill at the start, because we can't just look at Vitor Pereira. Everton again maybe should be in the C category actually, and I feel like I'm more confident with that. But yeah, 10th FA Cup third round and Carabao Cup quarterfinals is not bad per se for Brentford. Now let's go on to Bournemouth. Again, their highest ever points finish, 9th in the Premier League, Carabao Cup second round and FA Cup quarterfinals. I think again that is a B. Any club who's getting their highest points tied sort of total, which is Fulham, Brentford and Bournemouth, deserves to be high up. They really, really do. And I feel like this is fair. And it was a strong season for the Cherries. Now let us go on to the 8th position. Brighton, 8th in the Premier League, Carabao Cup round of 16, FA Cup quarterfinals, and their second highest points finish in the Premier League. Brighton fans, I know you probably, if you're watching this, you would be disappointed, because there's a lot of games you've dropped needless points in. If you're thinking about Southampton, you guys could have really been closer to Forest to put pressure on that top 7 and get yourselves into Europe. But I feel like if you looked at this season at the start, you would have expected Brighton to be in Europe. So I guess a C is probably fair, but it's still the second highest points total. It is really, really good for them, and they're probably higher in that C category. And if I can just sort of move these along, because Tottenham being 17th in the Premier League, it is not good. It is not good. So they'll be towards the end of that B category. Nottingham Forest, for me, yes, them getting Europe, it is incredible. We all thought they could have been relegated this season. They got FA Cup semi-finals, Carabao Cup second round, but they were knocked out by the eventual winners, which were Newcastle United. But I think a really good performance, some big wins that they've had against some of the clubs, some good draws at home to Liverpool, to beat Liverpool at Anfield, to sort of, be the club that takes points off of Arsenal as well at home, beating Manchester City at home. Some really good performance and memorable days for Forest fans. And then they're going to have some nice days in Europe for sure. Aston Villa, 6th, Champions League quarterfinals, FA Cup semi-finals, Carabao Cup round of 16. Not bad at all for Villa. It's just that they just sort of missed out on getting Champions League football. Europa League is still big, and it kind of makes them sort of favourites for that competition, I feel. But in the grand scheme of things, if they had got Champions League football as well, I'd have put them in that A category for sure. And I feel like they certainly could have got themselves into the final of the FA Cup, but being beaten by the eventual winners is nothing to be sort of ashamed of. Now let's get into Newcastle, 5th in the Premier League, Carabao Cup winners, and FA Cup 5th round. For me, again, they're hoodoo. They won a trophy, Champions League football. For me, they definitely deserve to be in this A category. A really, really strong season, getting Champions League football, winning a trophy. Dream season for Newcastle fans for sure. Don't really need to dwell on that. It's just a really, really good season and one of the best that Newcastle fans will remember. Chelsea, 4th in the Premier League, Conference League finalist. They may win it by the time you see this. Carabao Cup round of 16 and FA Cup 4th round. So when you're looking at that, it's not bad. I'd probably put it in B in the context of how much money they spent. They should be in the Conference League final. Probably would expect better performance in those cup competitions. But again, Champions League football, a massive achievement. But when you're looking at the Forest, the Crystal Palace and Newcastle, I don't feel like Chelsea are in that sort of category, if I'm going to be honest with you. Now we're going to go into 3rd place, which is Manchester City. And to be honest, they were really having a poor season within their context. So I think that's the only reason they're in the C category. But the way they recovered to get Champions League football, the sort of performance, FA Cup finalists, UCL round of 32 is poor, Carabao Cup round of 16 is poor. But I feel like for Manchester City, it is a good-ish season. It's just that they haven't come away with any silverware, and that's the first time that's happened. So I feel like it's not an F for City, but more of a C. For Arsenal, again, I would put them in the City category. UCL semi-finals for us. 2nd in the Premier League, FA Cup 3rd round, Carabao Cup semi-final. It's not bad at all, but we really were expected at the start of the season to win this Premier League title, and we haven't done it. So ultimately, when you're judging us, no trophies won as well, it has to be in that C category. And of course, in 1st place, Liverpool 1st in the Premier League, UCL quarterfinals, Carabao Cup 4th round, Carabao Cup final as well. Not 4th round, sorry, it's the Carabao Cup final that they got to. Yeah, if you're thinking about it like that, Liverpool definitely are in this category. And if we have to order it on a slot, the job here is done. I think Crystal Palace, that's monumental what they've done in terms of no one expected it. I would probably sort of, it's tough. Just say anyone in that A category deserves to be in the A category, and there's no order or ranking within them. But I would say I'm pretty sort of happy with how this has turned out. Let me know your thoughts if I've been too harsh, I've been too kind on some teams. But that's it for now, and until next time, peace.